I am in my feminine energy. I'm in my feminine era, guys. I'm the most feminine of all these other non-feminine losers. I will use my feminine energy to rocket me to success. And if anyone tries to suggest that I'm not in my feminine energy, I will fight them. Am I doing it right? Am I?
Oh yeah.
Is that? Yeah. Maybe I'm asking the wrong person, because if you're friends with me, like, you probably don't know. No, guys, I'm into this idea of feminine energy, and I'm going to try to foster that more in my life. I am. None of this, no more of this masculine behavior on my part. I'm going to be in my feminine energy era. So I am very excited to announce that. What actually got me thinking about this is there is a viral clip going around. It's called the mortgage prank, where women who are not the primary breadwinners in their family, or breadwinners at all, tell their husbands that they can't pay the mortgage that month. So Katlyn, just play. We'll play the full clip later. We're just setting up the main topic as we always do right now. But just play the part of the first clip.
I can't pay the mortgage this month.
Can't pay the mortgage. Do you know who our mortgage provider even is?
No, I don't. But I wanted to pay.
Okay, so you get the idea. And he's like, "Do you even know who our mortgage provider even is?" And people have an emotional reaction to that clip. I mean, doesn't that like kindle some sort of fire within you, Katlyn? Yeah. A specific kind of fire, a fire to be taken care of and be in your feminine energy. I'm like, there was my favorite comment to that viral clip is this woman just writes, "I've girl bossed too hard, I fear." All of us see that and we're like, feminine era begins right now.
Here I come.
Yeah, here I come. Feminine era. Yes. And a lot of people, the thing that really started this before the mortgage thing went viral is there's the concept of being a passenger princess, meaning you've heard of that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So that means your husband does most of the driving, and then that's also a metaphor for life, that he's just kind of taking care of a lot of the difficult things. These passenger princess gals will post pictures of them. They're at the airport and their husband has the whole itinerary arranged, and they're just like being silly, and they have their blanket, and their husband is taking care of everything. I find it intriguing because you guys know that my husband and I cannot even be on the same flight. And everyone thinks I'm kidding. I'm not. We don't travel together. Originally, that was when we had a bunch of little kids, because we come from the culture of death. We are both only children. We didn't have a lot of options if something happened to both of us. And we were extremely strict about just trying to make sure one of us got through till our kids were adults. I mean, we actually, no kidding. We actually, we tried to even not, like if we were driving on dangerous roads or something, if there was an opportunity for us to be in two different cars, we even tried to do that. We tried not to be on the same plane. And that is what it's like when you're living at the tail end of a demographic apocalypse. So that's how it started. But then, guys, once I got into flying my own way, per my preferences, not on the discount $39 airline where you're taking a middle seat to save $3, there's no going back. And it's funny. One time we did end up on the same flight recently by accident. And Joe wanted to sit next to me. And I'm like, why? Like, Katlyn, she probably finds this funny. When she and I fly together, I don't put our seats together because I'm like, what? We can talk when we're there. Like, we should both have a window seat, or we should both have an aisle seat. There's no one I care about enough in the world to take a middle seat to talk to them. We can talk at another time. Like, why should anyone have to take a middle seat? Now, when the comedy millions are here, we will both fly first class, and then we can decide who has the aisle and who has the window. But neither one of us should have to take a middle seat. But Joe felt like we should sit together. And so I was sitting there just rigid, like... So, I mean, we have plenty of time to talk. Like, was there something in particular that you wanted to discuss? And then he was being all fidgety, like he's got to do his airline travel a certain way. And then he spills his coffee on me. Oh. He spilled his coffee all over me. and that's it. Like, we're never going to be on the same plane again. We went to Europe. We flew from Austin to London to Rome and back, and we weren't on the same flights because I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. So these videos of the passenger princess, I like it. I like the vibe, but that's what we're going to talk about today, friends. We are going to talk about how we can step into our feminine energy, and but maybe in a way for those of us who there was a woman I met one time in New Orleans, wonderful woman, and she said, I relate to you a lot because I'm bad at being a girl. I like that. I can relate to that. So for those of us who are not, it's not totally naturally to us to do things that are classically feminine. I still think that we should step into our feminine energy a little more, and this podcast is about how to do that. And I will say also, I have so many male listeners, it's crazy. I mean, just legions of men listening to this podcast. I think you guys will also find this interesting because you will be able to very much see how you can extrapolate this to the male experience, and you can give your wife tips too. You can be like, hey, here's how you can be more feminine. She'll love that. Yeah. She'll absolutely love that. And by the way, it is face reveal day. Yes. For the first time in many a moon, I am not covering my face on the podcast. So you can look that up, jfonyoutube.com. That will redirect you to the page for my podcast, or if you want to look up this episode specifically, just go to YouTube and type in Fulwiler 245. That is why I number these episodes, so that you can find them across platforms. And now, I don't like the way I look when I laugh or smile. And I'm going to try not to do that. No humor today. No humor. So I had a solution. Speaking of being in my feminine energy, Katlyn was laughing about this right before we went on the air here. This is a perfect example of how my brain works. To me, this seems like such an obvious solution. Katlyn saw this and said, the things you come up with, and I'm like, this is why life is hard for me, because it seems so obvious to me. I bought a delicate ladies fan. See, I'm already using it. I am delicately covering my face. Like the modest woman that I am. When I laugh. Guys, I'm going to use this all the time. This is like a Japanese style. You know how women, like the classic, woman of Japan, but she wouldn't like laugh loudly like har 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 like us Vikings do, and they would just laugh a little bit delicately and cover their face so that you can't see their immodest laughter. Like this is me now. Hey, this is my new personality. Okay, this is I listen. You guys don't understand how feminine and delicate I am. Okay, get it through your heads. I am feminine and I am delicate. Starting now. Look at my ladies fan. Okay, this is. And I'm going to do it unironically. I don't care. I'm doing this unironically. I will be using this fan all the time. I might take it to my shows. Listen, I am in Royal Oak, Michigan tonight. I am in Milwaukee tomorrow. And then after that, hang on, I'll just do the list. After that, come out and see me and my ladies fan. I'm in Philadelphia, Richmond, Virginia Beach, Denver, filming a special, Plano, Tyler, Texas, Columbus, Ohio, and I'm 90% sure I'm filming in New York City. I do have a show there. The show in New York is going on either way. It's a small venue, so I would get your tickets soon. The only question is whether I'm filming, but I will definitely do a show in New York. So come out to those shows. jfcomedytour.com is where you get your tickets, and maybe I'll bring my delicate ladies fan on stage. And this was $5 on Amazon. Here's the pitch. If you, like me, would like to be a delicate lady coming out to my shows, I will let you know there will be a lot of laughter, and you wouldn't want to look like a tavern wench, just opening your mouth wide in laughter like some sort of hussy. So you, like me, can bring your ladies fan to my show and you can cover your face. And the thing that's great is you guys know I'm going to double down on this. Like I literally, because some people would be like, Jen, get over it. Okay, look, we know that you don't have Bell's palsy because Bell's palsy is for normal people. We know that you did something to cause this, as always, like as with all of the drama you bring us into, there was a heavy element of your decision making causing this. But like, get over it. It looks like you have Bell's palsy. People know what that looks like. Bristol Palin has Bell's palsy right now. Like the celebrities have Bell's palsy. So just get over it. No, I'm using my ladies fan. And it's never going to get old. And listen, I'm using this fan until my face gets better. So there you go. The best $5 I have ever spent on Amazon. You know what's great? This occurred to me 2:00 in the morning last night, the night before we were recording this, 2:00 in the morning. And they had like same day. They're like, you can get it by noon today. I'm like, yes, yes, technology. Yes. And in fact, because this podcast is a seamless tapestry, hit the seamless tapestry sound effect. This goes into I'm getting ahead of myself because we are still in setup. We always set up the show, then we go into the beginning topics, and then we hit the main topic in the second half of the show. But one of the intro topics after I introduce the show is going to be nostalgia and how everyone's like, the 80s were such a simple time. Life before social media. Guys, I'm about to go crazy on that subject. Buckle your seatbelts. And we've talked a lot about being triggered on this show. I know it sounds like a silly concept, but it's a real thing. I need to let you know I'm triggered by this subject, and I can't be held responsible for anything I say when I see, because we're going to play this video and I'm going to watch it, of 80s nostalgia. Mm-hmm. And you guys know that I didn't have like the most amazing time being around other people in the 80s and the 90s. So it's triggering to me, and I can't be held responsible for anything I said. But listen, if for those of you who are my age and sometimes feel nostalgia for the 80s and 90s, I'm going to refresh your memory that it was not what you are remembering. And okay, so what made me think of that is that I could get my Delicate Ladies fan. I could have it brought to me for like, the fan cost $5 and it didn't cost me anything in shipping. And I could click a button and be a delicate lady like hours later with my ladies fan. Could we do that in the 80s and the 90s? Are you kidding me? Where would I have gotten a fan? A delicate ladies fan for the delicate lady that I am. Where would I have gotten that in 1989? In 1995, for that matter. Yeah. Where, I would have literally had to, okay, I lived in Georgetown, Texas. We didn't even have a real restaurant in the city. We had a restaurant called the Chuck Wagon, which we affectionately called the Up Chuck Wagon. They had this constant battle with the health department that they were always losing. The nearest restaurant was in Olive Garden, like 20 minutes away in Austin. I'm trying to think, where would I have gotten a fan in 1995? I would have had to drive 40 minutes into Austin, go to some kitschy shop, but they may or may not have had it. Yeah. But you guys want to sit on Facebook and tell me like, life was simpler. Was it simpler? Was it simpler when I would have had to, in order to be a delicate lady, I would have had to drive 45 minutes and probably still wouldn't have found a fan. And if I did, because you couldn't price shop because there was no internet, it probably would have cost like $30 for the exact same fan that I had delivered to me for $0 that cost $5 right now. It was a simpler time. Like, it was actually everything was harder. Okay. I'm going to just fan myself with my Delicate Ladies fan. This is my cue to myself to get back into my feminine energy. Okay. Welcome to the Jen Fulwiler Show, where you learn about being a delicate lady and a passenger princess. Because that's what I'm about. It is what I'm about. You guys think I'm kidding, but I'm about to be so delicate. You don't even understand. This is the show where you learn about being a passenger princess and a delicate lady, and also you learn the art of the village hustle. That's being a hot girl, delicate girl boss, a girl boss in a delicate way, who knows that love and family and community are the foundations for all true success. My delicate co-host and I, we're both very feminine women, and her name is Katlyn White. We are coming to you from Austin, Texas, and we publish new episodes every single Wednesday morning. I have a Patreon where occasionally I melt down on our live chats. And usually there are like 10 kids in the background causing chaos while I'm melting down. And they're like, what did Miss Jen just say? And my kids are like, oh yeah, no, she's been doing that a lot. And luckily for you, all of the archives, after these live events, I put the replay up that you can access anytime. So if you join the Patreon at any level, you get instant access to all of those live events. They are in the section called State of the Dumpster Fire. And you can sign up for that. You also get weekly bonus content, stuff like that at patreon.com/thisisjen. That is patreon.com/thisisjen. That is Jen with one N. Okay, listen, just don't be offended by anything I'm about to say. Because, all right, I'm putting on my glasses. Hang on. I've got glasses. I've got a fan. I'm all set. Katlyn, play. Okay, no glasses. Okay, play with no sound because I don't need a copyright ding. So Facebook has been suggesting these nostalgia videos from the 80s and 90s. For those of you listening on audio, I'll describe it. First, I'll describe it, and then I'll go back and tell you my takes. Okay, I'm going to try to keep my mouth shut and not do commentary. I'm just going to describe it. Okay, let's describe it. Go ahead. Oh, wrong one.
Oh, wrong one.
Okay, so here we have, you know what it is? Wait, pause it. Hang on. So I'm already, okay. No. Okay. I think it's just the sepia tone on this. They made it look like old 80s pictures look, because everything was worse in the 80s and 90s, and like we didn't have clear pictures that had accurate colors, and everyone was like good times because the colors are inaccurate. Go back to that first. Okay, so the first shot, it looks like it was taken on 80s film, and it's what is that? Is that a man and a woman who's walking? Or are those kids?
Looks like a man and a woman.
Okay, so it's a man and a woman walking. Oh, those were the good old days. We can't walk anymore. Okay, wait, no. I'm not doing commentary right now. Katlyn, pause it on each picture so that I can describe this for the people on audio. Okay, there's a grandma and she is gardening with her child. She's like, oh, what is this flower? We should look it up on the internet. Oh, it doesn't exist yet. Oh, the internet doesn't exist. Okay, go ahead. All right, there's some kids camping around a fire. Yeah, we can't do that anymore. There's a bedroom. Okay, it has some posters up. Yeah, all right. There's some people in a canoe. Yeah, remember when we had... pause it. My husband is making me do a 15-mile canoe through Houston. Have you gotten roped into this?
Yes, but I didn't know it was going to be so long. And I was like, hold
15
on,
15 miles? Yeah, he's like, let's do a canoe thing in Houston. Okay. 15 miles?
Yeah.
You guys better follow me on Instagram that day. I'll bring my Delicate Ladies fan. If you think I won't, I will wear pearls and I will bring my Delicate Ladies fan. I should tell Joe that I'm going to be a passenger princess in the canoe.
God,
I'm going to bring my feminine energy to the canoe. And he can, I'm in my feminine energy. I'm not doing anything. I'm not rowing that boat. Come on. I'm going to tell you guys the date so that you can follow me on. Make sure that you're watching my Instagram stories on it. It's Saturday, March 22nd. Saturday, March 22nd. Ooh. He is forcing me to do a 15-mile canoe around the city of Houston. But what he doesn't know is that I am in my feminine energy. So I will be a passenger princess. All right. And I'm going to wear a big floppy hat and I will have my ladies fan. And I will just be looking around and be like, row faster. I'm in
15 miles.
Wait. Hit the, we're pausing the point for a very important tangent. Katlyn, what if you have to go to the bathroom? What do you do? Is there like a porta potty on the canoes that will be like 15 miles? Like, what do you
hope for the best?
No. Okay. Okay. I'm serious. I am dead serious. We need to figure this out. How do you go to the bathroom on a 15-mile canoe?
Jump in the water.
Oh,
just
come
kidding. That's
on.
so gross.
Oh, okay. Well, now I have to fan my ladies fan to collect myself. Okay. Okay, I'm so serious when I tell you. Remind me after the podcast taping to.
Okay.
Actually, hey Joe. Okay, can you come? We're live on the podcast, but can you come here for a second? I'm sorry. This is like the biggest tangent we've done. And okay, I'm not going to edit this out, but this canoe thing that you want me to do. How do you go to the bathroom?
It's only like 3 hours.
Would it?
Edit this out, or you're not gonna edit this out?
No, I'm not. So it's okay. So it's 3 hours, and there's no way to go to the bathroom while you're canoeing around.
Never come to a 3-hour movie.
No, I've never gone. Yeah, I go to the bathroom in the middle of a 3-hour movie.
Visual Mass is 3 hours.
And they have bathrooms. We have a modern church with bathrooms. Okay, I'm gonna wear Depends. That's insane. Okay, now we're going to get back to the main topic. I'm so concerned about this. Okay, no. All right. So canoe. So this is the nostalgia stuff that I keep seeing in my feed. Okay, so this is so I've established we still have canoes today, unfortunately. Yeah, that goes against my point. If life were really better today, we would have outlawed these monstrosities. All right, what's next? What's the next image? It's a kid in a tree. Yeah, we can't climb trees anymore. Okay, what is that? Do people know that we can still walk? Like, this is more people walking. Okay. These are kids on the grass, probably about to get stung by a bee. Okay, this is a young man and a young woman kissing. And that's, I will say, as the mother of teens, we don't have that today.
Oh, we don't.
Yeah, my kids, because they don't do that. They've never done that. And so it's true. Yep, we have definitely lost that because my kids would never do that. Okay. All right, what's next? Boy, they love these gardens. All right, so gardens. Okay, and here's a woman at cooking. Okay, so this is, I think someone from Gen Z made this up because this is supposed to be 80s, I think. That was the heyday of the working woman in the 80s. Like, that was our moms. They were corporate women. They were girl bosses. They did not get home till 7 p.m. because they were crushing it at their jobs. Like, that was, I don't know if I knew anyone whose mom stayed home in the 80s. Like, she was that woman. She'd be a lawyer. She'd be at work. Like, that never happened. You guys are just making stuff up. Okay, go to the next one. To a school. Okay, see, now we see a classroom in the 80s. Jen's getting triggered. The trigger is starting. Okay. And then what else? What do we got? Okay. So now, just to annoy myself, I read the comments on this, and people my age and a little bit older than me are like, everybody, if you think I'm kidding, just Google or type into Facebook, especially Facebook. Facebook is the worst for this, but you see it on Instagram too. The 80s nostalgia, or like life before. The big thing they say is life before social media. This was life before social media. All right, so Katlyn, now pull it up again. And I, as someone who lived during that time, I will tell you what life was actually like before social media. And wait, before you play it, I will say, pause it just on the first image. I feel like my voice is so important. The people that, like, the voices of those of us who actually lived before social media, like I'm trying to think, well, we lived before social media, but I was in, when the internet really became a thing, like when people Googled things and all that, I was in my 20s. So I knew adulthood, certainly without social media, but even without the internet. I was an adult for a little while without, when cell phones weren't quite a thing, and when the internet was really brand new. And I certainly went through high school. There was not much internet to speak of. And you had like AOL, but that, I'm not sure that really, you could, chat with the occasional pedophile who like find you. It was like, people did not know about internet safety back then, but there was really no internet to speak of. And I think that, like sometimes when people have lived through something great. You know, people like there are records of like people who lived through the American Revolutionary War. They're like, let our voices never be forgotten of what it was like to stand up to tyranny and all that. I feel like our voice is actually more important for those of us who actually have a good memory and actually really remember what daily life was like in the 80s and the 90s before social media and before the internet. But listen, I'm speaking now. Put this in a time capsule, okay? Clip this podcast and put this in a time capsule. Sorry, I'm reading while I'm talking to you. Put this in a time capsule for the good people of 2075. Life was a mess before social media, and it was actually a bigger mess than it is now. People simply, they don't tend to remember details when they think about their past. They tend to remember their highlight reels. So let my voice be heard. Put this in a time capsule, and I want everyone of all future generations to review this. People were a complete disaster, and there was just as much complexity and chaos before social media, and social media has only made it better. We have this natural reaction that anytime anything new comes on the scene that fundamentally changes the way we do things, we want to see that it's bad. My grandfather talked about this when cars were a thing. It was like, well, back in my day, people didn't rush to get everywhere. You know, we had our horses and we would walk and they acted like it was this bad thing that was destroying society. Dear listeners, don't have that knee-jerk reaction. Here's what we need to put in the time capsule. It's simply not true to say that life was better back in the day. Okay, so now we'll go through each one of these images. All right, pause it on the image. Okay, so these two people walking, what if they got lost? There's no Google Maps and they don't have a cell phone. See, you guys forget, you take all of our modern conveniences for granted. And I'm talking to people in their 40s and 50s who are leaving these nostalgia comments. You forget what it was like not to have cell phones. And like when you got lost, you were just lost. And I know some people will be like, but that was fun. It was an adventure. Not really. It was legit scary. And maybe some of you lived in like really nice neighborhoods all the time. Okay, if you were like wealthy and lived in a wealthy neighborhood, maybe it was charming to get lost. But there were some people like, not charming. It's not charming when you get lost. In fact, like that happened to me in San Francisco. I was out there for work, and this was before cell phones we had cell phones, but it wasn't like we didn't have maps on it. We didn't have smartphones. I ended up in a really bad part of town. And this was before Uber. And this lady actually, and she looked like who you would expect from a rough part of town. She was like, you better put that cell phone away right now. Because I was trying to call for help. And she was like, you're going to be in real big trouble if anyone sees that cell phone. Because the cell phones were still like kind of a sign of, you know, you didn't live in a bad part of town. And I could not find my way out. Every turn somehow put me into a worse part of San Francisco. But everyone's going to tell me that life was better before. Like, oh, those were the glory days, Jen, when you almost got stabbed to death in a rough part of San Fran. Okay, next image. Oh, wait, and my delicate ladies fan. I need to get back in my feminine energy. Okay. That grandmother probably just said the N-word. I mean, let's be real. Look, yeah. I told you, listen, listen. I told you these images are triggering to me. Society was not as evolved as it is today. Back at like early 80s, come on. Okay, so this is just like a child's bedroom. That's where all of us isolated culture of death kids would just sit with like, here's the thing. My childhood was, my mom listens to this podcast, so perfect. I would describe it as perfect. No notes. I think it was great that I was an only child and we moved all the time. And, you know, I sat in a lot of rooms like that. And it was great having nothing to do and no friends. It was wonderful. I see rooms like that and I see isolation. If you were a kid in the 80s in one of these rooms, you know, there's some dappled sunlight flowing in through the lacy blinds. It's like, okay, well, if you had an amazing life, I guess that was fine to sit there and like look at your Motley Crue posters and your Van Halen posters. But, you know, for those of us who were like outcasts and bullied and didn't have friends, there was no way to know you weren't the only one. Because as a bullied individual, the message that bullies always give you is like, you're the worst. No one's as ugly as you. No one's as big of an outcast as you. This is a fun episode. This is good. No, but listen, but this is a good episode because this is all positive. I'm saying this as a positive thing. Like, I'm fine now. I feel I've gotten my vengeance. I'm living my best life. A little bit disfigured, but other than that, I've got a career that, you know, only occasionally makes me want to die, but I like what I do. I like this podcast. My life has worked out great. I'm sure all of my bullies are completely miserable people. So I'm not saying this like in a heavy, bad way. I'm saying it in a good way, that a lot of people, especially my age, and if you're younger than me, you will face this here in 10, 20, 30 years. They do get caught in nostalgia, and it does make them legitimately very sad to see pictures like this. And I actually say this as a positive thing, that you guys can let go of the past because it wasn't better. And even if you actually did have a perfect childhood in the 80s and 90s, a lot of us didn't. Well, again, mine was perfect, but just your mom, it was amazing. And that's why I'm so sane now. That's how you end up in stand-up comedy, because you had a perfect childhood. But, you know, for people who were outcasts, especially if you lived in kind of a small town, there was no way to know you weren't the only one. And I seriously get a little choked up when I see people on TikTok and on Instagram, young people especially, just being weird, being different, making jokes about how, you know, they like to wear this goofy clothing and goofy, like I wore this goofy makeup to school and everyone made fun of me and I don't care. I'm going to double down. And I am just like liking and commenting on that stuff like the creepy lady. I mean, I'm like this 15-year-old. I'm like, you go, I support you. And they look at my profile. They're like, what's the, yeah, I'm going to get the cops called on me. But it really is so beautiful to see. I just see these kids who they might be isolated like I was. Maybe they're only children. Maybe they move a lot. Maybe they're bullied. And it's like they can go on social media and they can see that they're not alone. And for all the downsides of social media, and I know, listen, I'm more chronically online than any of you. I get it. Like, I pull up Instagram, it seems like all of my enemies are winning. Everyone's getting opportunities that I don't get. And I understand there are some downsides and it can be kind of addictive. But whatever downsides there are, it's worth the price. It's worth the price for kids who are a little different to know that they're not alone. Well, another thing is there is a lot of awareness, maybe even a little over awareness on social media of like the idea of being on the spectrum, of being a little autistic. Do you understand how different my childhood would have been if I had been aware of this? If there are just TikToks that I see that I'm like, this would have changed everything. If I had seen this when I was a kid, and it just would have helped. It would have explained a lot. It would have explained a lot. But there wasn't that. There was so little information flow back in the day. It was crazy. Think about it. For those of you who were born like 1994 or later, if you wanted to know something, where do you go without the internet? I mean, every house had like the Encyclopedia Britannica set, but I mean, you have to know what you're looking for to look that up. So like you go to the library? I mean, there just wasn't information flow. The news media was ran by like 5 rich guys, you know? And so the only information you ever heard was from these gatekeepers who just decided what we would know and not know. There was very little information flow. And I think to our detriment. And so many of us who could have really understood ourselves and the world a lot better, we just didn't have that opportunity. Because like if Dan Rather didn't bring it up on the nightly news, we weren't going to hear about it. All right. So that bedroom to me does not look like some like, oh my gosh, wish I could go back to those days. I'm not kidding when I tell you we got to get off of this canoe picture. I am so you guys are watching me having a meltdown in real time. That had not occurred to me, this whole canoe situation. I'm in a spiral about it. Okay, so the climbing trees, people get nostalgic about this.
Pretty sure my kids still climb trees.
Our kids are like, most of the time we do this podcast, they're like, we can see them
Out
in
climbing
trees out the window
Yeah.
while we're recording. So people think that kids sit on screens a lot more than they do now. That's another thing that you'll see in the Facebook comments of all this nostalgia, like, oh, kids used to play outside a little more. That's there's probably some truth to that, but I will say, you guys know I don't really restrict screens that much in my house, but my kids they want to be outside, most of them. I mean, they want to play outside, and in fact, I tried to send a TikTok link to one of my daughters the other day, and she's like, oh, I deleted TikTok for a while. I just want to kind of focus. Like, I see a lot of self-regulation with Gen Z. I mean, they grew up around social media, so they're kind of not the addicts that Gen X are. It's still kind of new to us. We're like, oh, this is amazing, but Gen Z grew up with it. So I actually see them self-regulating quite a bit. And I mean, it's nothing, the idea of kids just wanting to be inside and be on screens. But what people forget is, I mean, we got our first Atari in 1985, and there was this game Pitfall on it, and it was like the greatest. It was like a guy would you'd have to grab this rope and go over it was like a blue bar that represented water, and then you would like try to get over the thing of water, and we just thought it was the greatest. We were like, I mean, technology could not possibly advance. We had, look at this blue bar, it moved, and then there's a green blob, and that's an alligator. Like, this is amazing. And we had Pac-Man and Frogger, where the little frog has to go. Like, that was kind of a dark game when you think about it. The frog would get squashed if you have bad motor skills, and I'll never forget, there was also a Smurfs game, and I just couldn't believe it. It was like worlds colliding, video games, and I like the Smurfs show, and now we can control them with this little... It was amazing. So let me tell you, I remember one time when we moved from Denver to Georgetown, Texas, there was the way the Christmas breaks coincided. We moved in the middle of the school year, and I ended up having 6 or 8 weeks off because of how that worked. And, I'm an only child. I had no friends. So, what am I going to do? We moved in with my grandparents, and I had a room at their house, and I just sat there. I honestly played video games. I remember thinking it was 14 hours a day. I really think it was one of the Mario ones was out at this point. It was like Mario 3 or something. I still am kind of triggered by hearing that Mario music. I mean, it was 14 hours a day for 6 weeks. And when I wasn't doing that, I was watching TV. And that was another thing that people were very scared of in the 80s. There were all these doom and gloom images of families just sitting on the couch together on a couch, and there was this glowing TV in front of them, and it was what has become of our society? And now that seems so wholesome, everyone's in the same room and they're all watching the same screen, but people were freaking out about it. They're like, what, our society is collapsing? Because the old timers back in the 80s, they just thought the television was the worst, because we would have to hear the boomers say that all the time, because the average person didn't really TV wasn't this kind of omnipresent thing that every single person had until the early 60s. So a lot of these boomers had childhoods without TV, or it was a really small black and white little tiny box that it wasn't that impressive. So they didn't use it much. So all of these old timers were like, oh, the television, are you kidding me? These kids today, all they do is they sit in their living rooms with their families, and everyone's just watching these shows. So there was, when people do this nostalgia thing, they forget all of the fear mongering about television. It was this, terrible thing. Oh, and that's another thing about the people looking back at, at the bedroom from the 1980s. I had a TV in my room. That TV was never off. I mean, we would sit there and we would watch so much TV. So, I mean, you guys, you'd have to go back to the 70s, the 60s, the 50s to have kids who really had nothing better to do than to climb trees and stuff. And the other thing is, are there any shots of people riding bikes here? Because
I didn't remember seeing one.
Okay, because what's the next picture here? The next one is, okay, more people let's pretend they're on bikes, because that's in the Facebook comments, all these Gen Xers and boomers are like, we rode bikes back in our day. We didn't stare at screens. Okay, again, you did. I mean, we played Pitfall on our crappy Ataris. I mean, we played the Smurfs game. We played Frogger. We played Pac-Man, Asteroid. You guys remember this? Do you remember how much you sat in front of screens? And we watched horrible television, because that's the thing. We were still in front of screens. It's just we didn't have a lot of choices. So it was like the worst TV shows, so stupid TV shows with these insipid plots. And but so people they really like to talk about bikes, like we rode our bikes. Okay, so first of all, kids still ride bikes, guys. But I always want to be like, Gary, tell the whole story. We're the same age, Gary. Tell the whole story. What did you do? What were you doing on your bike? And Gary would be like, no, it was wholesome. Back in '88, we would get on our bikes, not be on these TikToks. We'd go around the neighborhood. What else did you do? What were you doing on those bikes? Gary, we are the same age, and I know people like you, and I know for a fact that you guys got on those bikes. You rode down to the end of the street. You called one kid a slur for being gay. You made fun of some other kid. Then you stole a pack of cigarettes from the convenience store, and then you went and toilet papered someone's house. That's what you did on your bikes, Gary. So they remember this, like, oh my gosh, the wind in my hair, the sunshine. Yeah, but you were doing degenerate activities on your bikes. And honestly, I actually think there is a little less of that now. I really do. Like notice toilet papering houses has not, that's not really as much of a thing anymore, and that used to be a pretty big thing in the 80s and 90s, and it caused people a lot of messes and things like that. And you really don't see that anymore. And I think that part of it is that social media has given us more compassion, especially compassion for people who are a little different. You can actually see their lives, and it humanizes them, and it breaks down some of our little cliques. And I know that people do, the algorithm will also kind of reinforce what you want to see, but the algorithms are not so pure that you don't occasionally come across information and videos from people who are a little different. And being able to actually see a video, I think video is really what changed things. Being able to see a video of some other person and what their life is like and what their pain points are, it is really hard not to have that humanize that person for you a little bit. And one thing that has happened for sure, and I think that it is partially, mostly actually thanks to social media, is bullying is so much better in schools. And I know there are some schools where it's still a problem, but by and large, the suburban schools that are pretty good, it is 90% better than it used to be. Again, moving around a lot, I saw a lot of different schools in a lot of different parts of this country, and bullying was not good. The administrators didn't care. The teachers didn't care. They kind of had it seemed to me that the teachers almost had this Darwinian attitude of it's survival of the fittest at this school. And you got a bad perm and say weird things. So maybe you should be bullied. Maybe we should actually let this keep, happening to you. And that it doesn't happen anymore. And yeah, some of the schools take it a little too far with every insane newfangled idea about identity or whatever they buy into hook, line, and sinker. Yes, some schools have taken it too far, but the not having that bullying component is huge, and it's better. And I think it's largely due to the way that social media humanizes us to one another. Okay, just play the rest of it, and you don't need to pause it, Katlyn. I'll just see if there are any other images that don't need to be causing people nostalgia. Oh, yeah, the woman in the kitchen. Pfft, please. Well, and the other thing is, I mean, if a woman stayed home in the 80s, there was a fair amount of shame about it. And actually, I think some of the hardest times for women who stayed home were like kind of 1950 to the end of the 1990s, because people were much more like, they moved a lot more. They were more mobile. We didn't have that. That's when the villages really started to break down. Like after World War II is when you see this trend away from people kind of staying in the same communities for life. So, it's not a coincidence that a lot of the anti-housewife stuff really started in the 1950s, because I think the women didn't realize what they were upset about was not being a wife or motherhood. What they were upset about was isolation. And like the women who wrote The Feminine Mystique, or like whatever, there was a really big one in the 50s that was like the big groundbreaking, like, you're oppressed if you stay home with kids. I always felt like those books missed the mark, that they were kind of rebelling against the idea of motherhood or being married. But it's like, you guys are just lonely. You don't understand what's happening. You're in the middle of a massive demographic shift where women didn't used to be quite so lonely staying home, and they didn't like have to have eyes on their kids 24/7. And so I think a lot of that, the pain and the rebelling against being a housewife and staying at home that you really see, it really peaked in the 80s, was it was a rebellion against loneliness. Because if you stayed home in the 80s, and if you lived in one of these neighborhoods where people moved a lot, and so you didn't necessarily know your neighbors, and a lot of other women were in the workforce, frankly, out of desperation for community, it was a very lonely time to be a housewife. So this image, it honestly really annoys me, this image of like, oh my gosh, a housewife from the 1980s. Like, and I know it's AI generated, but like, if this were a woman of an actual housewife in 1980, she was probably pretty lonely if she had the average American housewife experience at that time. And she was probably shamed quite a bit, frankly, because that was the zeitgeist, especially in the 80s, was like, if you're a modern woman, you need to be in the corporate world and be a girl boss, and like watch Flashdance. Like, that's a good movie. So have I cured everyone of nostalgia? Oh, and don't even talk like the geopolitical, like it was a simpler time. No, we were worried about nuclear weapons, and like Saddam Hussein there was a first Gulf War, guys. We were stressed about a lot of geopolitical things. Do not ever. So everything I just said goes in the time capsule for the good people of 2075 and beyond. Do not ever believe that life was simpler. People were kinder. It was good times before social media. It was not. People were, frankly, probably worse. They had a lot less sympathy. There was way more bullying. We were just as afraid of geopolitical issues, only we had less information about them because of the gatekeeper media. Life was not better. And don't ever let anyone tell you it was. So that was really for the people of 2075. So now I'm going to go back to talking to my listeners here in 2025. We're about at the main topic sound effect, mainly because I want to drink coffee. Okay. Don't forget speaking of feminine energy, girl bossing, being a mom, your career, there are two different levels of the Patreon, and the Village Hustle level is the one where I go into the nitty gritty of like, here's how I make it work. Like having this career, having a kind of intense career in the entertainment industry, which is a psychological meat grinder, and working in a male dominated industry, like all that. And then, but also having a family, being a good mom to my kids. Like, how do I balance all that? I mean, I do everything on the Village Hustle Patreon. From like one time I was showing our chore system that was a few months ago, but like our chore system, and then like I don't know, like how, I mean, everything from like how I organized my travel to like a business situation that I was stressed out about and how I handled it so that I didn't get too stressed. It's that sort of thing. So the Village Hustle Patreon, that's the higher level Patreon. And you can find all that info at patreon.com/thisisjen. Main topic. Okay. So this, I am surprised by the intensity of emotion that the mortgage prank viral videos instill in me. So I found a video that is a collection of a bunch of women doing the mortgage prank video, and really worth looking up on YouTube. Again, search Fulwiler 245 if you want to see this episode. We're at the 54-minute mark about.
Yes.
So you can, if you want to see the visual, you can, but the audio is, you get the idea. So this is a collection of videos of women who did the mortgage prank with their husbands. They told their husbands that they could not pay the mortgage this month, and then they videoed their reactions. Let's watch.
I can't pay the mortgage this month.
Can't pay the mortgage. Do you know who our mortgage provider even
No, I don't. But I wanted to pay it, and I can't pay it.
You don't even know how to pay it. You don't even know who our mortgage company is.
If you can't pay it, Apple will pay it.
David, I really can't pay the rent this month.
Well,
I can't help you.
we're really depending on that.
I spent it all, and I don't even think I'm gonna have rent for next month too. So
Babe.
I'm just letting you know now. So
Babe,
yes,
when have you ever paid rent? Ever?
yeah, don't do me like that.
Ever?
Don't do me
Ever?
like.
Where do you go to pay rent? Where do you even go? Who do we go pay rent to? You don't even know. Stop pissing me. I'm trying to pay.
I'm not gonna pay the mortgage this month.
I got you, baby.
What?
I can't pay the mortgage this month. I'm so sorry.
Do we have another house?
Next month, I won't be able to help pay the mortgage.
Did you help pay it last month?
I mean, I'm sure I can contribute it in some ways.
You didn't.
I love this so much. Okay, Katlyn, it triggers something in your feminine mind, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, is there okay, leave a comment on YouTube. Is there any woman who watches that and is like, doesn't feel like, yeah, I'm ready for that?
Oh,
Like,
I'm so ready.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
that.
Caitlin is
Be
like,
more
yeah.
ready.
Email Caitlin if you'd like to. If you're an eligible bachelor.
Comes with a lot of baggage.
Yeah, right. Let me just tell you, I know someone is going to say, no, I want to be, and I watch that and I'm like, no, I'm going to pay double the mortgage. I'm going to get a second house and pay for it all just to be more of an independent woman. Listen, you have some trauma and you need to do journal speak, okay? And I say that as someone who honestly probably should journal speak 6 hours a day with all of my crazy, but I think that is a normal. I'm telling you, it's your amygdala. It is the cavewoman part of your brain that is screaming like, I want that. And listen, I don't care if you have a buzz cut and you wear flannel and big work boots and you are a forewoman in the construction industry. Come on, you want that. Don't lie. Stop lying. You want that. All right, so here is a guy reacting to this, Christian Walker on TikTok. He reacts to this, and I'm going to key off of some of his points. He has some truth for the women of social media. In particular, he's talking about women who are with a man who is pushing for a 50-50 split. And actually, before we play this, the perspective that he is coming from, and certainly that I am coming from, and in fact, this is one of my bigger points, is it's not really about who pays what bills and who contributes what financially. It's more about the desire of the man and the desire of the women. We'll get into that later. But I think Christian Walker's point is not exactly that it's horrible for a woman to ever pay any bills, but that come on. No woman wants to be in a relationship where the man is like, hey, where's my 50% of the rent? Okay, so let's listen to Christian Walker. Katlyn, I think I checked it for profanity. If I didn't, then you'll just in post you'll have to edit. You'll have to edit that out. Okay, go ahead.
All right.
I want y'all to notice something about this 50-50 I can't pay the mortgage trend of women who don't pay to begin with pranking their husbands. Not only are the women giggly because they're so taken care of and proud of their husbands, every single husband loves it because they take pride in providing for the woman they love. They don't see it as a burden. She needs to go out and bring something to the table. No, her energy, the way she pours into her husband, the way she loves him is enough for these men. There's also all different types of men. These videos are being filmed in big mansions, sparkly condos, starter homes, regular apartments. It ain't a money thing. There's rich guys, there's normal guys. It's a mindset thing. These provider men see it as an honor to have their woman not touch a bill on the house. They love it. All the 50-50 men who demand that their wife go work, not support her in a career she wants to pursue, but demand with an attitude of entitlement that she go work, view providing for a woman as a burden. They see it as a hardship. The provider men see it as a privilege. Two different types of men. I would never expect 50-50 men to understand provider men because they're on a totally different frequency. They have a poverty mindset. They don't live in a world of abundance. They're greedy and about themselves, and they don't view women as a prize in the way that provider men do. Just like pit bulls and golden retrievers are both dogs, 50-50 men and provider men are both men, but they're from two different universes.
I would get along
pick
with
the man
this
who
man.
views you as a weight he has to carry on his back. Pick the man who's proud to do his best to take care of you.
Oh, Christian Walker, my
I
goodness.
just got chills.
Oh.
I don't think I've had that in a long time.
Yeah, well, now I have to get out my Delicate Ladies fan and fan myself. So there's my point. I guess I could just get a transcript of everything he just said. Yes, and guys, this is kind of near and dear to my heart because I am in the field of stand-up comedy, and I know many, many people in this field. And what's interesting about stand-up comedy is that it's the arts, but it is a male-dominated section of the arts. So, when you think about it, most arts are, in fact, maybe if you think of people who oil paint, you think of that as lots of women do it too. It's men do it, women do it. But comedy is kind of an interesting field in the sense that it is an art. It's for artists, but it is a very male-dominated, 80-90%. Men. So I have a very this subject is near and dear to my heart, and it's one that I've been talking to my daughters about. And are you getting that clip that I just airdropped to you? Yes. Ready? I've been talking to my daughters about this because I have some experience with artist men. And listen, there are some great artist men out there. There are also some not as great artist men out there.
Cooked your favorite meal?
Don't play it just yet. There are some not as great artist men out there. And the ones who I have encountered, and whether or not I know them personally or I've heard about them, they definitely have the 50-50 mindset. No one's going to be a passenger princess in that relationship. And you hear a lot with these kinds of men. You can take it down for a second. Okay. You hear a lot with these kinds of men. This is I'm really not thinking of any one person, but this is an amalgamation of different conversations I've had with stand-up comic men. I'll be like, hey, Jake, how's it going? They'll be like, oh, really good. I'm really crushing my new open mic sets, and I think I have an arc to this comedy piece that I'm putting together, and so that's kind of my full-time thing right now is just hitting the mics and just kind of working it out and expressing myself in a way that feels authentic to me. And I'll say so how's Shelly, your wife, how's she doing? And he'll be like, man, it's so great to see her find her passion in her full-time job. she loves it down there at the coal mine. And, she's only gotten cancer twice from the work that she does. And that, the shovels are pretty heavy that she has to use, like digging in the coal mine. The x-rays showed that her lungs are completely black, but that's like, I think she's kind of discovering her blue flame. It pays the bills. And she gets up at 5 a.m. and she kind of heads home just in time to cook dinner. It's good. She can be home by 7 p.m., which is a little later than I prefer to eat dinner, but that's just when she can start cooking. So I am willing, to make that sacrifice. And she really enjoys it. And we're just both excited about my comedy and how it's coming along. My new bit about my genitalia is it's really, I think this is going to be something. I think I'm going to get up at Mothership. I think I'm probably going to be on Joe Rogan here pretty soon. And, I don't want to give anything away, but my closer about this time that I set one of my farts on fire, I was working on that for 4 hours while she was at the coal mine the other day. And I was like, it's good that she is supporting my art this way, because I think that we just both agree that this is where I need to be. If you think I'm kidding, ask someone who has dated male comics that how exaggerated that is. And this reminds me of, remember a few episodes ago, I introduced you guys to Shira 7. She is the female response to red-pilled alpha man culture. And when I first introduced you to her, I did say, I'm not saying that I 100% agree with her worldview. I think it's a little toxic in the same way alpha man podcast bro culture is a little toxic, but it is funny to hear the female response of objectifying men the same way that alpha bro podcasts tend to objectify women. And as I was listening to Christian Walker talk about men who make their women split the bills 50-50, I was like, oh, Shira 7 would be all over this. So I want to play this again. This is Shira 7. She is playing the role of a woman who is with a man who insists on being supported by her.
Cooked your favorite meal, and I got the half of the rent right here. Anything else you need, sir, my king? I got all your favorite foods cooking in the kitchen. I done already paid half the bills. And guess what? I even made a cake, okay? I know you working hard up at the call center, so I got to do my part. I already got your video game up, ready to go. You just sit down, you have a seat, and I'm gonna bring you your plate. I told you I paid half the bills already. I sure did. I even got some left over. And guess what? I bought you a present too. You know how you was telling me that you wanted to start another stream of income? And how you wanted to start that YouTube channel? I got you a mic.
A podcast mic. So
it was from the pawn shop, but hey,
share his opinion.
It's still a mic. So when you gonna give me my ring? You don't believe in marriage. What? It's just a piece of paper. Well, I was waiting to tell you, but we gonna have a baby. Hey, baby. I'm so glad you're home from work.
That is Shira 7 giving us a glimpse into the life of a woman whose husband insists on 50-50. She pays 50%. And so and Christian Walker kind of hinted at this, and this is really the main thing that I want to get into here over an hour into this episode. I have a lot to say on a lot of these topics. Is that it's not at all about the exact amount of money that men and women contribute to the budget. It's not like that's that is kind of this rule-based mentality that people with unresolved trauma or mental illness tend to get into, where when they think of gender roles, when they think of family, they tend to want to perfectly check boxes. Like, well, no, the man must pay 100% or it's not a valid marriage, or the woman must pay 50%, fully 50-50. Listen, the rules, it is the sentiment behind the rules that matters. It's not about the rules themselves. And again, it's usually a sign of a lot of unresolved trauma. People who are like, they don't know how to live or have relationships without having these written bullet pointed rules that they can scratch off and check to know that everything's okay. That's a trauma response, guys. So like to give the artist example, to use my comedy friends who are like, yes, my wife is really finding herself in the coal mine, so that I can work on the jokes about, my genitalia and my bowel habits. She loves it. She loves it down in the coal mine. It's not to say that there is something inherently wrong with a man being an artist and a woman taking time to support him. But what does matter, I think, is the spirit with which it is done. And I do think, and I have come to believe, my feminine, hang on, let me get out my fan, my feminine, delicate self over here. I do think that every woman should have a little bit of a passenger princess feel to her life. I think that is an important part of being feminine. And I think that any healthy relationship between a man and a woman fosters that. And so for my male listeners, I think that it is important that you guys foster in your wives a passenger princess vibe. And of course they should, it's not just the women getting the type of love they like. There are the women also need to foster certain feelings towards their husbands, but we are already an hour and 10 minutes into this episode. So that will be a different subject. Also, it's kind of hard to go into that one without getting into risque subject matter if we're talking about men's love languages. So, but I think a good example of this is Dean Koontz, who is one of the best-selling authors of all time. I think he sold more than 100 million copies of his books. His wife supported him for a while, but it was in a honoring her feminine, still passenger princess vibes sort of way that they sat down together. They decided that they felt like there was a future in his writing. And so they set a time limit where he had 5 years to try to make something work. That's a nice, good long runway for him. He would do some writing. He would try to get it published. And if nothing had happened at the end of it, then they would reevaluate. And I think the assumption was he would go get a day job and she didn't have to work. But she got a job and she worked, and she paid 100% of the bills for those 5 years. And they're, good Catholic family. And and that worked. And that's great. And I think there is nothing dishonoring of his masculine and nothing dishonoring of her feminine, even though she was paying all the bills. I know a couple that the wife she's a big time attorney. She makes so much money. Katlyn, she makes so much money. It's crazy how much money she makes. And so her husband stays home with the kids. Still a passenger princess vibe there, because she knows that at any time she can call it. She can sit, if she were to go to her husband and say, I feel like I can't be fully present for our kids because of the ways that my job is stressing me out. I feel like I am, not being that emotional support for our kids in that feminine way that I need to be. No one except for me talks like that, but I do talk like that in private conversations. But she could go to her husband anytime and say that to him and say that I need you to get a job. And I know we'll have less money because I make a ton of money, but fine, we'll downgrade, we'll get a smaller house, but I don't want to do this anymore. Or maybe she decides she works part-time or whatever. I think the passenger princess vibe is when the woman has that option. I do think something that you can say that is kind of universally applicable is that the crushing pressure to get all the bills paid and just slog it out financially should ultimately be more on the man. And that doesn't mean that the man is even contributing anything. Like in the case of the woman who makes a gazillion dollars as a lawyer, her husband decided to stay home, or in the case of Dean Koontz' wife when she was supporting him for a while. But the man ultimately, like if things really get real and things really are like, okay, we're in a bad situation, the house is about to be foreclosed on, something has to happen. I mean, in that case, probably both people would go get jobs. But that ultimate pressure of like, I got to be out there. I got to be the one out there killing the tiger to bring food. I don't think people ate tigers in the Neolithic period, did they? Okay, we actually don't need it. I'm not going to turn that into a tangent of what did they? Well, buffalo. All right, they ate buffaloes. Okay. Only on this podcast. I mean, if it comes, I do think it goes back to a very primal thing where it's like, all right, if we're starving and you have to quite literally bring home the bacon, by which I mean, stabbing an animal with your spear and dragging it back home to cook and eat up. And that was a dangerous thing. It's ultimately, there is an element of danger in that bringing home the bacon duty. And it's not to say that women can't do it. It's not to say that it's morally wrong if they do it. None of that is true. But the ultimate responsibility should be the man's responsibility first. And again, doesn't mean that the women can't do it. I mean, think of all the women who ended up divorced, widowed, things like that throughout history. Yeah, they got it done. Of course, they can go out, pay the bills, all that. And there's nothing contrary to your feminine energy about that. In fact, I think that it's a great, powerful use of feminine energy to do that, to support your kids in that way. But when it comes to women's relationships with men, I do think that it's good for a marriage, and it's good for women's self-esteem, and it's certainly good for children if women have that passenger princess option, not to be the final person in charge of the crushing financial pressure. I think the final pressure should be on the man. Again, in the case of Dean Koontz and his wife, let's say something had happened, they had a big financial hit. So for some reason, something happened and suddenly they needed a lot more money. I think that as the man of the relationship, it probably would have been on Dean Koontz to say, okay, I need to pause my writing career. We're just going to have to hit the pause button on this, and I will take care of this. Maybe you still need to keep your job, but I'll get a job too. I will make sure these bills get paid. And because that kind of pressure, the pressure that involves being out there in the world, dealing with bosses and jobs and all that. It is a direct extension of the caveman pressure of, being on the hunt, trying to spear the buffalo or like whatever it is they ate, I don't know. I guess they didn't. Why can't we eat tigers? Okay, I'm not doing it. I'm not I could go on a tangent, but I'm not. But I mean, they're meaty, Okay, stop. I'm going to stop. Bears, can we eat? Okay, never mind. Whatever. It does. I mean, anyone who has ever paid their own bills knows there is a certain crushing feeling that comes with like, the buck stops here. The buck stops with me. It's all on me to get these bills paid. I remember this from when I didn't get married till I was 27. I remember that feeling of like, who's going to make this money? Oh, me? I've got to make that. No, this sucks, and that is, that is a psychologically difficult thing. And I think especially for women who are mothers, but this is true for all women, but especially for women who are mothers, I think it is great if you can not have as much of that crushing, like the buck stops with me in terms of the bills getting paid pressure, because the type of feminine energy that is so good to share with your family, especially with your children, but with society, it's this very nurturing energy. Children need that from their mothers, that nurturing energy of, the just embracing them in a hug and listening and just, seeing the good in them and being there for them and, chastising them and getting them on the right track, but gently and lovingly. And here's the thing, that takes a lot of energy. I mean, to really be present for a kid who's going through a tough time, I mean, it's exhausting. It takes a lot of energy. And if you are also with one of these Shira 7 50-50 men or like, my comedy friends who are like, listen, this joke about my bowel habits, I'm sorry, honey, you have to get the bills paid again so that I can work out this material. It does detract, I think, from your ability to bring your feminine presence to your children. If you're with a 50-50 man or a man who insists on you paying all the bills and he's like not going to help and you both know it. Or again, he's like, you're not being a good wife if you don't contribute 50-50. If you're with a guy like that, I do think that it's going to be hard for you to have the energy to bring that nurturing feminine presence that is really, really good and healthy for kids, and that frankly only a woman can bring. Yes, men can be there for their children. They can have deep conversations with them, of course. But there is something about being a woman that you're just not going to get around and that is not replaceable. Women cannot be replaced by men. And that's what you're preserving by having a passenger princess mentality and by knowing that ultimately, if push comes to shove, it's going to be your husband dealing with this mortgage payment. Even if you're currently paying 50, 75%, 100% of the bills, if stuff gets real and stuff goes down, it is ultimately on your husband. And that is that lovely, nice passenger princess mentality that you can work it out with your husband, who is actually paying the bills right now for with whatever makes sense. But that it ultimately rests on him. And when you can have that peace and calm and that freedom, I think that is what really allows you to foster that feminine energy. And it's so healthy for you. It's so healthy for your children. And frankly, I would say it's even healthy for the whole world. All right. Another fine episode. I didn't even get into all the topics that I wanted to get into. So we'll have a banger episode next week. Check my tour calendar, jfcomedytour.com. Get your tickets soon for all the cities that I am coming to. And I will be back with you next week here on the Jen Fulwiler Show.